Welcome students to the chapter on deviance and social control. So the first thing we need to do is define our terms. And so what exactly is deviance? Well, in general terms, deviance is considered a violation of an established social norm. So years ago in the United States, it was considered deviant to be divorced, to be a single mom, to get a tattoo, to be a homosexual. Lots of things were deviant back in the 1950s and 1960s. But today, all of these acts are accepted by prevailing social norms, more or less accepted. So how does society enforce these social norms when they consider, or when the authorities consider somebody to be deviant? Well, if someone violates a serious social norm, they can be put in jail or fined. This would be a formal sanction. However, if someone violates a norm, say cutting in line at the deli or talking too loud on their cell phones, they're usually given some type of informal sanction from other people in the form of a dirty look, or maybe somebody might say something. But in most of societal sanctions are informal. So there's many theories about deviant behavior. Emil Durkheim, for example, said that deviance is necessary in any society, and because it can lead to social change. And he doesn't give this example, but a good example is Rosa Parks. Of course, Rosa Parks refused to sit in the back of the bus. Well, this led to the civil rights movement. And of course, that movement ended segregation. C. Wright Mills asserted that those in power are the ones that decide what is deviant, and that they make the rules to benefit themselves and to keep themselves in power. For example, the poor, when accused of a crime, are maybe given a public defender to defend themselves in the courts. Public defenders might be great lawyers. However, they have what they call a case overload. They usually don't get paid that much, and they get too many cases to cover. So if you have a public defender, you're not going to get as good a defense, generally, than if you can afford to pay a private lawyer. So here is where C. Wright Mills might say that this is how the people in power, the people with money, kind of control the court system. Because if you have money, you get a good defense attorney, and a lot of times you can get out of the crime, even though you might be guilty of the crime. However, if you're poor and you're accused of a crime and you have a poor defense, then generally you might end up in jail, even though you didn't commit the crime. So here's where C. Wright Mills tells us that the elite are the ones that don't serve time, and the poor end up serving a lot of time in prison. So he brings to mind the inequality of the judicial system in the United States. One interesting fact that you'll read about in the U.S. Prison system is that the U.S. has the largest number of prisoners in the world. So that has to be a shocking. I know when I first heard that statistic, I was kind of in shock, because like everybody else, I was always under the impression that the United States was the freest country in the world. But then one has to ask themselves, well, how can a country that's supposed to be free have so many people in prisons? So if a sociologist would look at this and look at the number of poor people in prison compared to the wealthy, and the disparity is shocking. So mostly the poor, minority groups make up the prison populations. So as you're going through this chapter, keep in mind that some of these statistics are always changing, and so one of the things that you might want to do is look for current statistics online. Our textbook, I think, is around 2013. I'm not really sure, but obviously textbooks aren't as current as a statistic that you could find online. So always keep this in mind. Check for the updated statistics. Nevertheless, I'm quite sure that statistics of the poor making up most of the prison population in the United States is still very valid. So I hope you enjoy this chapter. The first part is mostly about informal sanctions, and then the second part is about formal sanctions, our prison system and our court system. Okay, so I'll see you next time.